Morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate there's quite a few of you today. So this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour about the property redress scheme. I'll be back later to talk about my deposits. So basically, dispute handling, okay? That's my role. That has been for 16 years now. Right. This is going to work? Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's fly through the wrong way. Okay, so this is really what we cover. I mentioned my deposits, but at the company that I work for, we really cover a landlord life cycle. So for those of you that aren't aware of everything that we do and the connections between some of these people, I know Paul Champlina's talking later. He was the founder of Landlord Action. My Deposits and PRS is what I'm talking about today. Client Money Protect, they're all part of the life cycle of a landlord and what they need to have in place. So that's just a very quick overview. So why do landlords use letting agents? Now, some of you here will be landlords that don't use letting agents, and some of you will be. But generally, when you use an agent, it will be down to confidence that the agent will help you keep your property fully compliant. Okay, we know how many regulations and rules you have to abide by, and that can be tricky for some landlords. So it's really worth thinking about. If you're managing, you may be an accidental landlord just with one property that you've inherited. So making sure that you're compliant is really key these days. You can secure a better standard of tenant sometimes if their referencing is robust and they have a lot of experience and maybe a tenant waiting in the wings. You can maximize your rental capacity because they understand the market and the breadth of the market in that particular area. And they can minimize void periods for you. So if you know that something's going to happen, that you've got a tenant that suddenly wants to leave, it's not all on you to maybe find the new tenant. They may, as I said, have someone waiting in the wings or be able to find someone quicker than you may be able to. Should give you peace of mind. So agents' behavior is really important. Make sure you're choosing. Are you struggling at the back? Oh, I'm really sorry. Can you hear me now? I won't start singing, I promise. You really don't want to hear my voice. Okay, so in theory, using a good agent will give you peace of mind. Make sure you're using an accredited agent if you are. And by managing the property, the agent is going to save you some time to do other things that you may want to do. So, as I say, if you're an accidental landlord, it may be another job aside from your main job. So, in theory, in practice, there are over 175 rules that you have to comply with as a landlord to be compliant. So, and that is likely to grow under what the government is going to be doing next. We all wait with bated breath on that one. Okay. So how do we help at the PRS? We are an alternative dispute resolution platform, alternative to court. Okay. So again, we save you time and money. We facilitate that negotiation, and it's something we're very proud of doing. Over the last 4 years, we've improved tremendously, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Early resolution is what we do, and we pride ourselves on how successful it is becoming. So, again, about that in a minute. But if early resolution is not successful, we go on to a formal decision basis, which means the parties don't have an opportunity to be involved, and we make the decision for them with our very well educated and knowledgeable team of case decision makers. Ultimately, what we've helped to do over the 10 years that we've now been in existence is improve industry standards. And that, again, leads on to the powers that we have, not just as decision makers, but what we can do when agents do not comply. So while I'm talking to a group of landlords, potentially, I think there may be some in the room that use agents or are letting agents themselves. Anybody here want to volunteer that? Using agents? Yeah, so there's a number of people. Okay. So this was from our last annual report, which obviously we're nearly up to the end of the year, so we'll be doing another one. We have over 20,000 members now, which is considerable considering where we started 10 years ago. In 2023, the complaints against letting agents rose by 20%, and we're actually seeing a similar number of increases this year. So problems are not going away. Our top 3 complaints were holding deposits. Be careful that you understand exactly what the rules are around holding deposits. We haven't got time to go into that today. Poor service, poor management by letting agents, and tenancy payments, rent collects not being passed on to landlords. Sourcing fees is another big one, which again, we haven't got detailed time today, but those are the main 3 areas that we deal with. The average award was £1,800. But if I tell you at least 2 of our awards went to our maximum of £25,000 last year, that will generally be on the sourcing fee and the rent collect issues, which aren't being passed back, which is why it's really important when you use letting agents, you make sure they have the reputation and the accreditation that they need to have. Do your homework. When we conducted a survey, 67% said that the legislation is their biggest challenge. Okay, so we know that some landlords struggle to self-manage their properties and are fully compliant. In 2023, we expelled 58 agents. So I'm coming back to what I said, we do have some powers. And what that means, I'll come to in a minute. But so far this year, and we're only 3/4 of the way through the year, we've expelled 69 letting agents. So why am I talking to you about agent redress? Well, landlords complain about the agents they use as well to us, as well as tenants. I'm keeping this quite straightforward and quite high level, but if you do want to come and talk to me about anything afterwards, please do. Buyers and sellers come to us. Okay, they may have been misled or advertising misrepresented the property, and we deal with leasehold and freehold property disputes as well. Common complaints, I've already said. Holding deposits is a huge one still, and that's 5 years on from the Tenant Fees Act. So you'd think people would understand how it works, but it's amazing how many don't. And that goes for agents, letting agents who should know better. Fees charged. There are elements of this that we would not be able to deal with, but we will always point you in the right direction if it's something we cannot look at. The service provided is a big thing that we can look at, and awards vary vastly depending on the level of poor service, the shortfall that the agent has provided, and an element of damages, but we're very careful on how we word some of these things when we do them. So when we look at things that we take on, it's an act or omission by an agent. There is an element, as I've mentioned, of poor service and their behaviour. So it's amazing what we do see people say to others, even in writing. We will look at the loss suffered as well, and we will look at compliance and whether they've actually behaved in the way that they should have done with any code of practice that they've signed up to. And basically what we're looking for is, did our member provide the level of service that an average consumer can expect? Where we cannot look at things, and we will point people in the other direction, and sometimes we have an element of both in a decision, we will manage the complainant's expectations by saying what we can look at as part of their complaint and where they may need to go to deal with the rest of the complaint. And then they, of course, have a choice as to whether they use us for part or just take all of it and go elsewhere. But Where there's no prospect of success would be the same in any dispute. If the landlord or the agent has made a reasonable offer of a solution, we would not actually look into that case. We would say there is no prospect of greater success. Anything that's complex or the majority of the complaint would be better dealt with by court or another body, the first tier tribunal, for example. We would not look at that case. Where legal proceedings have already started, we would delay or not take on a case where the court, which has a higher jurisdiction than we do, is dealing with it already. Criminal or fraud, we're very careful to actually understand the case, because it's amazing how many people will come and say, oh, they've been fraudulent or they've been negligent, or they're alleging some sort of illegality, but actually are they just using the wrong words for what they're trying to do? So we actually look at it first and say, look, this isn't fraud, we can deal with it, or no, this is fraud, you need to go and take legal advice. So that's really important for us to understand first before we give that advice. If the amount they're claiming is over 25,000, that is our limit. Okay, now some people will say, well, I'll take it. If you can get me 25,000, I'll take it. Some people will claim 25,000, and actually the most they're going to get from us and would from any court would be £500. Again, we need to manage their expectations right at the beginning. So you need to understand exactly what you're claiming and exactly what that may end up as. We also offer a mediation service. So if it is an issue of 25,000 or something that maybe we cannot deal with, we also give parties the opportunity to use our mediation service. Both parties have to agree to that. And the way it works is that the one who starts the process has to pay the fees. But they're very straightforward and it's a very cost-effective way and a quicker way, again, than using the courts. So the powers that we have, if we expel an agent, and I said last year was 53, and this year is 69 so far, they are unable to trade. Okay? If they do not belong to a redress scheme, they cannot list their properties on property portals. Okay? So that means basically they can't run their business. They have to shut down. So us actually expelling them is a big deal. They cannot join the other redress scheme because we have a memorandum of understanding. So if they expel somebody, they tell us, and vice versa, and they cannot then join the other scheme. We are stopping them from running their business until they comply with a decision. And we will tell National Trading Standards, who may have heard about their bad behaviour or their poor service from other areas, and they then decide whether to investigate and take matters even further. So we have quite a lot of power. We are intrinsic to that quality process. Pointing it in the wrong direction. That's gone in the wrong order. Okay, so I've talked about that in the wrong order, but never mind. So very briefly, what is next? We don't know what the government are going to do, but there is going to be some sort of landlord redress at some point. Okay, basically, we are looking to increase our early resolution success. Currently, we're at over 50% of the cases that come to us, and it is about 3,000 cases a year. We are resolving early. So that means the case is done and dusted in about 50 working days, which is not bad, actually, from beginning to end. Bear in mind the timescales we have to give people to provide their evidence as well. I think you'll find that's quite a lot quicker than using the courts. And we're constantly improving our team's knowledge. So we keep them updated, like you come to these forums for an update, and we are training. We have specialists within our teams on buying and selling, leaseholds, various different parts of the kind of things that we deal with. So we're looking to improve that. We don't know what the Renters' Rights Bill is going to do, but we know there is redress which will level the playing field for tenants, and not just those that can complain about their agent, but give them an opportunity. I think the resolution side of that will look quite different to the one that the agent does. Potentially will be a lot quicker. They're also looking at, making strict rules about rent increases. So we'll have to wait and watch this space and see what's coming. That's my whistle-stop tour.